Welcome to Newsmaker. I'm Candace Burns. Midland Congressman Dave Camp is calling it quits after 12 terms in Washington, D.C. Shortly after his big announcement, he sat down only with ABC 12 for an interview about his decision. Here's ABC 12's Washington Bureau Chief Jacqueline Policastro.
Congressman Dave Camp says he doesn't know what's next, telling me everything comes to an end. But right now, he says he's still making a hard push for tax reform.
Even though Congressman Dave Camp holds one of the most powerful positions in Congress, the Ways and Means chairman is walking into the unknown.
Not exactly sure, not sure at all. I've made no plans. Really needed to get through this announcement.
Camp's been in Congress since 1991, and his 6-year term on the Ways and Means Committee, where tax code is written, is about to expire. A few years ago, he battled cancer. This year, he's battling fellow Republicans.
All right. I'm going to say this one more time.
When Camp released his own tax reform bill earlier this year, House Speaker John Boehner laughed. Camp's bill was immediately dismissed by Boehner and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell as legislation that wouldn't have a chance of passing in a midterm election year.
That's fine. I think we could use more humor up here, not less.
Do you think you could also use more support for tax reform from Republicans?
Well, I'm getting a lot of support. I'm obviously working through the bill with members of the committee, both Republicans and Democrats, and meeting with groups of Republicans to really go through the bill in detail. It takes a long time.
Camp says tax reform isn't dead. He's still trying to lower tax rates and push through parts of his sweeping overhaul of the tax code before he leaves Congress.
Well, I'm going to spend the next few weeks and months trying to build support for the comprehensive reform, for the reform that really simplifies our code.
With Camp's departure, Michigan is losing a ton of seniority in Congress. He's retiring along with Congressman Mike Rogers, chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Senator Carl Levin, chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and the longest-serving member in congressional history, Congressman John Dingell. Camp might not have plans for his future yet, but his legacy on Capitol Hill has already begun to take shape.
You're one of the most powerful men in Congress, but you also have the reputation of being a nice guy. How did you achieve that?
Look, I just think you want to treat people the way you want to be treated. That's kind of how I was brought up. And I've been in the minority twice, and I'm in my second turn in the majority. And you want to treat people in the minority the way you want to be treated. So that's really my philosophy.
Congressman Camp told me he isn't endorsing anyone for his congressional seat or the chairmanship of the House Ways and Means Committee, saying that Republicans just need to focus on keeping control of the House this November. Reporting inside the Capitol, I'm Jacqueline Policastro.
And Jacqueline joins me now to talk more about the congressman's retirement and her interview with him. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hey Candace, thanks so much for having me. You know, it's funny because just after that interview ran, a friend of mine did a story in Politico talking about a rift between Dave Camp and House Speaker John Boehner and how they kind of got into a little behind closed doors argument. So you heard me talk to the congressman about his reputation up here on Capitol Hill of being sort of that nice guy. And while that is true, his reputation is that nice guy reputation, he definitely is still focused on trying to get something done before he leaves Congress, and the evidence of that kind of blow up shows that he's not stepping down until he actually leaves Congress.
All right, Jacqueline, we heard Camp say he isn't exactly sure what he's going to do next. Are there any rumors on Capitol Hill about what could possibly happen with a powerful politician?
It's sort of crazy because there really aren't any rumors just yet. There were rumors that Dave Camp was gunning for House Speaker John Boehner's job. That was, of course, before he announced his retirement. So right now, he hasn't said what he plans to do next. I asked him directly, and he said he simply doesn't know. So we're going to really have to just wait to find out.
Well, his retirement certainly came as a shock to a lot of us. Now his seat is up for grabs. What does the district look like?
Well, Dave Camp's North Central Michigan district, Michigan's 4th congressional district, definitely leans Republican. In 2012, Mitt Romney took that district. In 2008, Barack Obama did, but just slightly. So for Democrats, they're really going to need to put a conservative Democrat in that spot if they want even a chance at winning. There are several different Republican names being thrown around. Here in Washington, Attorney General Bill Schuette's name has been thrown out in the past few days. But keep in mind that the filing deadline is on April 22nd. So anyone who wants to get in that race really doesn't have a lot of time.
Yeah, that's true. The deadline is coming up closely. Let's switch gears a bit, Jacqueline. Legislation to restore jobless benefits for the long-term unemployed is one step closer to its final vote in the Senate. We've been hearing about this for months. Why hasn't anything happened yet?
Well, something sort of almost happened this past week. On Thursday, senators were supposed to vote on legislation to extend federal unemployment benefits. They cleared the procedural votes. Every single Democrat and 6 Republicans voted for this measure to extend the benefits. But then when it came time for the final vote, lawmakers went home for the weekend. So they're expected to vote on this at 5 p.m. on Monday. And here's what's inside. We're talking about extending benefits until June 1st. And this basically would help out about 2 million Americans, cost $10 billion, and it would be retroactive as well. So anyone who lost those benefits on December 28th would be rolled into this new piece of legislation, but it's just a short-term deal.
And it sounds like lawmakers are planning to pay for this in a few different ways, right?
Yeah, they are. I actually have a list here because it's hard to keep track of all the things that have been thrown out inside of this legislation. So they plan to pay for it by extending U.S. customs fees, making changes to the federal pension program, and prohibiting millionaires from drawing benefits. There's also some job training programs involved. And what's interesting about all of these different measures is that on Thursday, when lawmakers were trying to move forward with voting on this legislation, Republicans came out sort of at the last minute saying, hey, how about we do this or how about we do that? And that's part of what slowed down the process anyway. There really aren't a lot of Republicans willing to support this in the Senate. Those 6 are really the ones right now.
It does sound like it's likely to pass, though. And what happens next after if they pass it?
Yeah, it is likely to pass, of course. Here's the real problem. Even if this clears the Senate, the House does not plan to take it up. House Speaker John Boehner said that he'll take a look at this legislation, but he's not making any promises. And the bottom line is that House Republicans do not want an up or down vote on extending unemployment benefits to happen, because this, of course, is an election year. And if you vote against it, it's not going to look good. It's something that's going to hurt you on the campaign trail. So we've been talking about this for months, since even before the December 28th of last year deadline. And all of this legislation, while the short-term fix sounds interesting and good to some people, it may go absolutely nowhere. And I did talk to Congressman Dan Kildee, of course a Democrat, about this, about what he thinks needs to happen in the House. Take a listen to what he told me.
It's going to be tough, and it's going to take all the Democrats and the handful of the Republicans who are seeing and feeling the same kind of problems that we're seeing back in Michigan, that are willing to stand up and say, look, this is something we have to do.
Of course, Dan Kildee thinks that the House should vote on this, and he's pushing for that. He has been for months, but as I mentioned, it's unlikely. Something that's important to note is that President Obama has put his support behind the Senate measure. And of course, again, this is an election year. The economy is going to be a big focus. We have every member of the House up for re-election and a third of the Senate. So we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on this and where it kind of moves from here.
Lots of great information there. Thanks so much, Jacqueline, for joining us today and keeping us posted on what's going on in Washington.
You bet.